Hello there, and a very warm welcome to the show. I'm glad that you are joining us this morning, and of course, thank you so much for staying tuned on the #1 business channel in East Africa. My name is Anthony, and I am your host. It's a Thursday morning, and I hope you're fresh and ready to start your day with, of course, the latest data from different stock exchanges across Africa and across the world. To be part of the show, you can do just one thing, that is following us on Twitter, or you can actually go to our YouTube channel and watch us live there at Smart24 TV Live, and go in the comment section and leave your comment. The show is also proudly brought to you by Altex East Africa, and of course, with Altex East Africa, I think you can do something absolutely new and wonderful. Simply grab your phone and dial *292# and follow the prompts to be able to partake of Altex East Africa's Zabu initiative. Altex East Africa is saying you can do something new, and of course that is through using mobile money access to invest across East African treasury bonds, and the latest that you have on the interests that are coming in from the exchanges across East Africa. Altex opens their doors at exactly 15 minutes past 8 a.m. and closes at 15 minutes past 3 p.m. East African Standard Time. Altex East Africa, Zabu, my money, my future, doing something new. Let's delve into the business here on the stock exchange in Uganda first and foremost. We have 18 companies that started the day yesterday with the trade, and according to data from the exchange currently on Wednesday, we had just about 6 equities participate in trade on the Uganda Securities Exchange. Remember, on Tuesday we had about 4 equities, so this is an increase of 2 companies coming in to participate in the trade on the Uganda Securities Exchange. The day fortunately also ended with 4 gainers and 6 losers as well. Bank of Baroda Uganda leading the gainers. Now, Bank of Baroda Uganda's stock led the gainers at a 0.69% appreciation in price, closing off the day at 16.0 Ugandan shillings. The Equity Bank Limited stock as well gained 0.19% and appreciated to 980.02 Ugandan shillings. As well as the Nation Media Group added 0.06% up to a price of 540.79 Ugandan shillings. Kenya Airways also added 0.06% and closed the day with a 101.04 Ugandan shillings per share. Now, in as far as the trading here on the exchange is concerned, there was a pretty much smaller volume concerning, of course, the companies that did trade on the market, and just about close to, let's see, 799,000 shares. Approximately 800,000 shares were traded yesterday. The day corresponded to a value of 34 million Ugandan shillings in trade, with Wumeme contributing the highest turnover on the market. Now, Bank of Baroda Uganda led with a landslide at 0.69% appreciation in price, closing off the day with 16.0 Ugandan shillings per share. The Bank of Baroda Uganda's story of the last few weeks has been that of their bonus share. Bonus shares are extra shares that are offered to the shareholders of a specific company in a particular period in order for the company to raise more money. Now, bonus shares can come at a cost, or they can come at an entirely free cost, because when we look at bonus issues as a reward maybe for the shareholders, or replacement for the dividend, if a company maybe is not able to issue a dividend, they can give bonus shares, but not so for Bank of Baroda Uganda. The bank currently holds one of the biggest valuations in terms of the money they hold on the Uganda Securities Exchange, with a total value of at least over 40 billion Ugandan shillings. Now, when you look at the requirements, the minimum capital requirements for the bank commercial banks here in Uganda. As per Bank of Uganda rulings, in 2024, all banks will be required to hold at least 150 billion. This is as a result, of course, of several banks unfortunately being unable to absorb shocks, especially like the COVID-19 pandemic, inflation, and a couple of other economic shocks that have been happening here in Uganda. So the Minister of Finance, Honorable Matia Kasaija, came out and made it very clear that from 2024, the minimum capital requirements for any commercial bank in Uganda will be 150 billion Ugandan shillings. That is from the 25 billion mark. Also for the microfinance institutions, they have been, of course, uplifted from close to a total value of about 1 billion to now 25 billion. The microfinance institutions are also going to be required to have minimum capital of at least 25 billion. So those are guidelines that you should be aware of if you're dealing with finance, or if you're into the financial institutions currently in Uganda. Now, Bank of Baroda's stock yesterday had 6,500 shares that were traded on Wednesday, and the gross turnover was 104,000 Ugandan shillings at exactly 616 Ugandan shillings, closing off the day. The company in the longer run has been losing, of course, due to their bonus issue. They issued extra 12.5 billion shares, each at 10 shillings. So their aim is to collect 125 billion. So that is, of course, translating into 10 shillings per share, if you calculate that. So that is what explains their very sharp drop in price from 75 on average to 10 shillings on average. Now, in the 4 weeks, the company has also lost 78.7% and 81.2% in the last quarter. But weekly performances have improved by 14.30%, with the stock price rising steadily from 10 to 14, now to 16 Ugandan shillings per share. In as far as trading is concerned, the Bank of Baroda Uganda stock is the fourth most traded on stock on the Uganda Securities Exchange within the past 1 quarter. And in the last 1 quarter, at least 9.75 million shares have been recorded on the Baroda stock. On average, they trade 154,790 shares there per day. That is on the day they trade, which is quite stable for a bank like Baroda on the Uganda Securities Exchange. That's it from Baroda. Stanbic Bank Uganda recorded, however, the highest volume, close to 732,600 shares that were recorded. Stanbic started their trading on the 25th of January 2007. So far, the company has a market capitalization of 1.3 trillion Ugandan shillings. In value, they represent about 7.61% of the entire Uganda Securities Exchange. Stanbic Bank Uganda is number 1 traded on stock on the Uganda Securities Exchange as well in the past 1 quarter, with a total of 140 million shares that have been recorded. There are 3 reasons why you should invest with Stanbic. Number 1, their stock is affordable. When you are investing on the exchange, you're looking at, can I afford this stock in the long run? Because when you're investing, you're not investing income, your daily income. You're investing money that is not part of your daily income. Why? Because there's risk. You don't know what's going to happen to this stock tomorrow, or you don't know if this price is going to be stable or things are going to change. Like, for example, Bank of Baroda. So how are you going to do it? You're going to invest money you're not going to need, at least in the next 1 or 2 years, or even in the next 5 years. Money you're not going to look at. Money you are putting aside for investment in the long term. So Stanbic Bank Uganda is affordable, so you can put aside a sizable amount of money and buy a huge amount of stock at Stanbic. Because I'm talking about 26 shillings. With 26,000, that's 1,000 shares. 260,000, 10,000 shares. 26 million, you have 1 million shares. Who else offers that? And number 2, the company is profitable. Stanbic Bank Uganda made a profit of 366 billion last year. The year before, they made 275 billion. The year before that year, they made 245 billion. That is a sign of growth. It is a sign that the company is making money and actually giving back to their shareholders. In 2020 and 2021, the bank was unable to issue a dividend. However, this wasn't due to the fact that they didn't make a profit. No, it was a regulation that was put in place by Bank of Uganda in order to, of course, hold capital for these banks, because there was a pandemic, the businesses were not running, shops were closed, so the economy was slowing down, and so businesses were not actually borrowing money. But because immediately after the pandemic, there was a projection of an increase in credit-seeking institutions or individuals, there was need for these banks to hold money. So Bank of Uganda, in its wisdom, actually put a ban on a release of any dividends for any of the listed equities or the listed financial institutions in dividends or bonus shares is concerned, so that these companies could have enough money to cover up, of course, for the institutions or the individuals that would be seeking loans or credit after the pandemic. And this worked out quite well. Now, several institutions did not come back, including DFCU Bank, including, yes, Bank of Baroda actually came back, but not as big and bougie as the Stanbic Bank Uganda stock. Stanbic Bank Uganda spared at least 50 billion for the first half and 50 billion for the second half when you look at their current amount there. So you have 100 billion over 2021 and 100 billion over 2022. So that's quite some value. And they did actually give out a dividend after that particular ban was lifted by Bank of Uganda. So you can see how dedicated they are to their reward of shareholders. They are very dedicated. Also, the bank has grown in assets. Currently, they have grown from over 71 points of representation to hundreds of points of representation across Uganda. They have also grown their network from about 111 automated teller machines to about 150 automated teller machines. Their assets have been growing over the last 5 years. So what else would you be looking for if you don't stop by Stanbic Bank Uganda and get yourself some stock? Definitely, I've given you more than enough information than you need to make yourself a decision. But well, MTN Uganda was another stock that did trade over 37,321 shares, with Wumeme at 18,764 shares as well. Bank of Baroda Uganda traded just 6,500 as earlier on mentioned. Regarding the performance of the benchmark indices, the all share index declined by 14.05 points, down to 1,018.78 points on the exchange, a 1 week loss of 2.8% and a 4 week loss of 2.18% as well. The USE local company index decreased slightly by 0.45%, down to 271.65 points. That's the trading, my friend, from the Uganda Securities Exchange. Now, Uganda Securities Exchange is saying you can be a trader. It's quite simple. With MTN IPO, we introduced a new way of opening accounts. Due to, of course, inconvenience that was there before, paperwork and a lot of bureaucracy, MTN came up with a very easy and a few steps to open an account. Remember, to trade on the exchange, you need a Securities Central Depository account. And so MTN said, okay, let's get a USSD code for that. And that is exactly what they did. Simply go to your phone and dial *165*57# or *165, and then you hash, then you select option 5, and then you go to option 7. When you do that, you'll be able to open the portal and put in your details like your national identification number and open yourself an SCD account. That is at the MTN after the MTN IPO. That's exactly what we witnessed. Then, when you want to trade, you must of course go through a licensed stockbroker. Stockbrokers we have, for example, SBG. We have UAP Old Mutual. We do have the cheaper technologies, a new entrant there on the market, and then we do have Dyer and Blair Investments. All those can get you access to the market and get you to reach out to the buyers and the sellers, whichever you may be interested in. When you do that, forget all the rest and start your journey of investment with the Uganda Securities Exchange. Now, moving on to Nairobi. Nairobi Securities Exchange slightly had an improvement from 45 to 49 listings trading on the exchange, and the day ended with 28 gainers and 16 losers. Pretty interesting, almost double the number of the gainers were double the number of losers. Captura Company led the gainers at 6.9% appreciation in price, closing off the day at 155 Kenyan shillings per share. We had Express Kenya at 6.15% appreciation in price, and East African Cables at 4.35% appreciation, whereas EGADS had 4.17% appreciation in price. On the losing side, Trans-Century East Africa came out last with an end-of-day price depreciation of 10.11%, whereas that one was closing at 0.80 Kenyan shillings per share. Longhorn Publishers continued its loss from yesterday as well at 9.52%. Olympia Capital Holdings lost at least 9.46%, and Jubilee Holdings Limited lost 7.73%. Well, for the volumes traded, this time Safaricom led the movers on the market with a volume of 2.5 million shares that were traded, and the BK or Bank of Kigali Group at least had 2.1 million shares, whereas Centum Investments came in the third place at 1.21 million shares. Well, interesting as these figures might be, there was a decline in the volume by 9%, of course due to the previous day where we had Homeboys Entertainment come in as very huge movers there on the market. The turnover, however, improved by 68%, and the deals declined slightly by 5% on Nairobi Securities Exchange. Regarding the performance of the NSE market indices, the benchmark index, the OSHA index increased, consequent of the good performance of the gainers, 28 gainers over 16 losers, by 1.5 points to 105.29 points. Now the OSHA index is at a weekly gain of 3.9% and a 4-week gain of 7.71%. Kenyan markets seem to be improving slightly. They have gone through a very tough time. If you've been following the Kenyan market in the recent quarter, the second quarter especially, even the first quarter, things were not so good, with stocks like Safaricom suffering heavy losses due to the liquidation of investors, foreign investors. One of the challenges we still have in East African markets is an influx of foreign investors. So many foreign investors have one problem. When there is a slight feeling of insecurity, and of course there's flight of capital because they want to move out of the market, there is panic selling. And the panic selling, because they hold the biggest amount of shares, they sell a huge portion at very low prices, and that leads of course to a drop in the value of the markets. So that is the problem. That's why you and I, Ugandans, Kenyans, Tanzanians, Rwandans, need to invest in our own markets. We need to take back what belongs to us. We need to open our eyes and get to understand that we can make money without having to wake up a single day to go to work, with just putting our money in the right places. When you look at the other indices, we do have the NSE 20. The NSE 20 looks at the top 20 stocks with via market capitalization on Nairobi Securities Exchange. It improved by 0.57%. And the NSE 25 tracks the top 25 companies on the exchange in Nairobi, and it improved by 0.95%. And that's the trading, my friend, from Nairobi overall. In Africa, elsewhere, Zimbabwe Stock Exchange unfortunately lost 351 points on their benchmark index, and the Nigeria Stock Exchange at least lost gained 213 points on the same day. The Johannesburg Stock Exchange dropped off 1,237 points on their benchmark index, whereas Ghana Stock Exchange at least dropped off 11.78 points on their all share index. That's the trading, my friend, from the exchanges across Africa. For more information, visit www.smart24tv.com for the live updates of what's happening on the market. Or you can stay tuned and watch, of course, our squeeze back, where we keep updating those values for you in as far as what the market prices are at the moment. Let's fly over to the United States, where the fire has been on, of course, concerning the chairman of the Federal Reserve Bank, Mr. Jerome Powell. Now, stocks fell on Wednesday as Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell was set to foreshadow in testimony before Congress as more rate hikes are in sight this year. The S&P 500, which is the benchmark, at least for most cases, and the Dow Jones Industrial Average were both down by 0.3% on opening the trade on Wednesday. The Nasdaq Composite fell nearly over 0.5% in early Wednesday trading. Nearly all the FOMC participants expect that it will be appropriate to raise the interest rates somewhat by the end of the year. These were remarks of Jerome Powell, the chairman of the Federal Reserve Bank in the United States. An unexpected spat, of course, flared up after President Joe Biden and China's President Xi Jinping, dictator, on Wednesday. When you look at what has been seen undermining the efforts of both sides to rekindle relations with the United States and the world's second largest economy, that is China. We keep, of course, watch of the stock market in the United States and hope for the very best by the close of today. At least we can get you those updates as well on our website, but you can also visit our Twitter handle, that's at Smart24TV now, for all your latest live updates from the different stock markets. That's it, my friend. I'll see you tomorrow as we wind down the week. Remember to save and invest. A lot more business is coming your way. My name is Anthony Sabale. Once again, remember, we are brought to you by Otex East Africa, which is saying you can do something new by simply dialing *292# and following the prompts. Have a very wonderful day, and of course, I'll catch you tomorrow for our last and final segment of this week. And bye for now.